smell of blood, lots of blood, sets your teeth on edge. There was a lot of blood. In the dirt, on the knife, on us. So much blood on us. So much blood. We were born after the invasion. We grew up watching our country become less our country. A colony. A certain circular irony. Our puppet leaders played the appeasement game. We listened as our parents begged us not to make trouble. Heard the scorn in the voices of the conqueror's soldiers who loved to make us sit up and beg. We were the children of cowardice, and we were angry, young, angry, impotent. We were scared every day, scared, ashamed, angry. It's a deathly cycle. So, we met and drank and talked big plans of revolution, gathering in caves and gullies. We set lookouts and then we went home and slept quietly in our beds. We got up and carried their burdens and took their slaps. We gradually began to realise that we were just one more group of gutless dreamers waiting for someone else to do something. Of course, there were always plenty of takers for the mantle of heroic martyr. They came and went. A week, a month, a year, sometimes just a day of violent resistance, whispered slogans and petty actions, all ending in the tears of parents and lovers, the laughter of soldiers. Stripped and flayed bodies were hung in trees to remind us that we were less than human and no more trouble than dogs. The invaders were a machine without sympathy or pity. I think they quite enjoyed the occasional bit of exercise, another chance to show us how things stood. Of course, we had the religious nuts too, calling us back to the mythical glory days and promising victory if we would just all go back to church and set our lives to rights. Some people listened, and they ended up the same way as the political zealots. Some people listened, and they ended up the same way as the political zealots. The invaders didn't laugh at them. In some ways, I think they thought they were more dangerous. We just thought they were sad. When did religion ever change anything? So we simmered over a low flame and got older. We graffitied the trains, we posted flyers in the dead of night, and we told ourselves that we were making a difference and that the day would come. It didn't. Days like the one we were hoping for don't just come. They must be made, forced, coerced into being. And that takes someone with enough fire to burn things to the ground. That wasn't us. We were weak. We threw matches on asphalt. A brief flicker, then nothing. Safe fire. Most people, no matter what they say, just want a quiet life. Just want life. Just don't want to die. Dee and me were at the pub, just the two of us. I'm G. We called each other by letters to avoid detection, and because when we were 8, we thought it was a cool idea and it just stuck. An old joke running a circular track. C was working shifts, stacking shelves, the sort of job they let us have if we were really good boys. M was recently married and his partner wasn't well pleased that he hung with us, so we didn't see as much of him anymore. B and F and B too, yeah, I know, had played indoor that night. The place was pretty quiet because curfew was only an hour away and you really didn't want to get caught on the streets after curfew. That's when Baz walked in. Big, bad Baz. All muscle and tattoos and attitude. I thought he was still in jail. I'll be honest, he'd scared the shit out of me at school, and he still did. The guy was like a downhill bike with no brakes. There was only ever one way it was going to end for Baz, which is why I stared at my beer when he started walking our way. You lad still plotting the downfall of empire? Not a bad opening line if you wanted to clear a room, which it did. You're out then? No, mate, still in. I'm projecting my animus through a separate dimension. What do you bloody reckon? Really? Says Dee. I've always liked Dee, but he can be a bit slow to catch on sometimes. Baz just laughed, patted him on the head and ignored him after that. When'd you get out? Yesterday. Good behaviour. I knifed a bloke who was causing the screws a bulk of trouble. They liked that. They couldn't prove it. I think they put a word in at my parole hearing, so I'm out. It was always hard to tell if Baz was just having you on or not. I just kept my mouth shut. But I believed him. He's got this kind of manic energy that seems to buzz just under his skin, so that if he reaches to touch you, you back off quick. In his eyes, too. Part Loki, part Thor. And now you know my reading preferences. So, are you? What? Plotting the downfall. There are points in your life when every cell in your body screams at you to keep your mouth shut, tells you to back away, begs you to run. This was one of them. Another was when I decided to ask Kay to the school formal. Prettiest girl in the school by a mile. Had always been nice to me. Had just split from a jock boyfriend and happened to be sitting on her own at the school bus stop. Every part of me, except the tiny bit of my tiny brain that held my ego, was counselling me to be very, very careful. I went with the minority. The very small, very stupid minority. I can still remember the look on her face when I asked. She didn't laugh. Actually, she was really kind, polite, in the way that adults are to small children who announce they're going to build a rocket and fly to the moon. I didn't end up taking her to the formal. When Baz asked that question, I knew I needed to say, no, just getting by, heads down, playing the game. I needed to disappoint him. He might have spat at me or hit me or simply turned his back and gone looking for the next possible idiot. But that's not what I said. I said, yeah, of course. Because I'm weak, gutless. I wanted him to think that I was something. And because it was true, in some back room of my brain, I was still hoping there was a way to change things, to get back what we'd lost. Dee said, Baz just looked at him once. Dee shut up. Good. Got a plan. I've been looking for a couple of blokes just like you to make it work. Gonna hit 'em hard, real quiet, but hard. You in? What's the plan? I asked. Better you don't know, really. Just going to give one of them curfew guards a bit of a fright. I thought you said you were going to hit him hard. He laughed. Yeah, well, hard enough, eh? Just a bit of fun tonight, get you trained up. Come on. And that's how, later that night, Dee and me found ourselves squeezed between two big parked trucks in the council depot, waiting for the soldier who was doing patrol. We were supposed to wait until he came close by, then make scuffling noises to get his attention. Then Baz was going to frighten him. Amazing plan, eh? I'd been more than slightly underwhelmed when we'd finally got so far beyond curfew that he deigned to tell us, knowing that we couldn't just run home. To be fair, it was a good night for it, no moon, pools of illumination from a few street lights, pitch black between. A good night to be scared. And we were. Scared and praying to no particular god that no patrol would be bothered with this patch of car park on this night. Maybe we should have chosen a specific god, because whichever random one got our email completely ignored it. The soldier was on his own, and obviously bored. He stopped under a light and fished out a pouch before rolling a smoke. Just leaned against the post and blew rings into the air. Pretty cool, actually, but it wasn't tobacco. Is he smoking started Dee before I clapped my hand over his mouth. He's got a gun, remember? I mouthed in his ear. The soldier took his time, savouring the joint, obviously not in any hurry to get to wherever was next on his rounds. I almost felt sorry for him. I bet he wished he was back home in his country with his mates and his family instead of... And then I stopped feeling sorry for him. No one made him come. No one made them come. Stuff them. They all should have stayed home. He finally finished. Then he took a leak under the light. Maybe he was just making sure his spliff was out. Bushfire season. Then he started walking our way. I went rigid. No breath. Couldn't move my arms. My legs. Scared stiff. That's a real thing, it turns out. Well, Dee tried to drag me back further into the shadows, but I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. Dee's pulling on my shirt and my feet are scraping against the gravel, and of course, he heard us. He might have been stoned, but I reckon the adrenaline kicked in for him and his gun was up real quick. "Who's there?" he shouts. From the waver in his voice, I could tell he was close to being as scared as we were. Who's there?" And I said, "Nobody." I actually said it aloud, not in my head. I said, "Nobody." All hell broke loose, all at once, in less than a second. Well, that's how long it takes the world to turn itself upside down and for everything you've ever dreamt of to disappear. He fired. Dee wrenched me sideways, and then the bullet hit Dee. He went down, and the soldier's coming towards us, and I'm asking Dee if he's all right, and Dee's not saying anything, and the guy's got his gun up again and trained on me, and then Baz slips out of the shadows and sticks a knife through the soldier's back and into his heart, and for good measure, slices his neck open. The blood. It sprays over us all. We can't see it in the dark, but we can feel it hitting us, and when we try and wipe it away, it just gets everywhere, and there's that metallic tang that I will never forget. That was the first time I'd really got a noseful. Since then, it's mainly been my blood, but it smells the same. Weird, eh? There are dogs barking, and Baz is laughing all low and crazy. Dee's breathing, but I don't like the sound of it. It's kind of wet. And there's the staccato of running boots. Lots of boots. Lots and lots of boots. Then spotlights. And Baz has picked up the dead soldier's gun and is shooting into the dark, shooting at the sound of boots, and the boots are shooting back. Baz goes down with a bullet in his leg, and then they're all over us, kicking us and hitting us, and I throw myself over Dee to protect him, so I get double. And when the officer arrives, he calls them off. First time I'd ever been pleased to see one of them. Last time too. They took us to the jail and threw us in the cells. In a gesture I didn't understand at first, they came and took Baz and Dee out, straight to the military hospital. After that, the guards beat me senseless, but without breaking any bones. Clever, that. It's not an easy thing to do, apparently. That's what they told me when I woke up just before they did it again. It went on and off, depending on how bored they were or how well they knew the guy Baz killed. Forever. He'd had a lot of friends. While this was going on for me, Dee and Baz recovered. Recovered so they could be good and healthy when they were made an example of along with me. I told the guards 100 times that I hadn't touched the knife, that it was Baz. I didn't care about ratting on him after what he'd done. They showed me pictures of myself, covered with that soldier's blood. I stopped pleading innocence. They stopped kicking me. Come that final Friday morning, they told me Baz and Dee were all fixed up. Told me the plan was that we'd all be nailed to trees later that day. I've had better news. But they were distracted. They had a new prisoner they were really excited about. The J bloke. Everyone knew who he was, even me. One of the godbrotherers who'd been out in the rural areas annoying the local church powers. All sorts of stories about him. Beautifully strange stuff. Healings, miracles. Sounded like a load of rubbish, but never any reports of violence. No political revolution. A load of people loved him. He had a reputation for being kind to outsiders and playing mind games with the hypocrites and collaborators who thought they were in charge. He was the latest big thing. When he'd rocked up in town, followed by his mates, half the population had gone out to see him. That got some attention. But he was rattling the cages of our so-called leaders so much I reckon the invaders thought he was good for a laugh. So they let him get on with it. Except now. He'd made a mess of the biggest church in town and smashed the windows of a few loan sharks. Good church-going loan sharks. The mayor, a mongrel called Dirk, who everyone calls Dirt, and that should tell you how well respected he is. The Chamber of Commerce and the Ministers Fraternal did not like him. Not one bit. Scared he'd do something that'd get the whole city killed, so they said. Well, that's what the rumours said. I reckon they were just worried that he'd spoil their nice, cosy little arrangement with the invaders. Word on the street was they were looking to stitch Jay up. It turns out they did. Good and proper. My guards weren't even gloating about me and Dee. We were the undercard, I suppose. Another couple of soon-to-be corpses. But they were excited about Jay. And they were really mad about Baz. Livid. Because Baz had done it again. He killed one of their mates and then just walked free. He'd also left us for dead without a backward glance. That's what one of the guards told me. This one was a decent bloke and didn't take much part in beating me up. I don't think he wanted to be there, so he talked to me when no one else was around. Apparently Dirt and his mates had hired a few big lads and got the local cops on side, then gone and arrested Jay. They could have just given him a kicking and run him out of town, but they wanted him gone for good. They knew they couldn't kill him, not without facing a murder charge themselves, so they jumped on something he or someone had said about him being a king, smacked him round a bit and taken him to the military governor, saying that he was a rebel and was setting himself up to throw the invaders out. Demanded the death penalty. It's amazing what some people will do to save their own necks and their bank accounts. Just that morning, they'd roused up half the city and dragged Jay to the governor. I was told the whole thing had gone down in about a couple of hours. The governor, to give him his due, is not a stupid man. Cruel, cold, angry and arrogant, but not stupid. He would have known exactly what Jay and his mates had been up to out in the bush towns, and if he'd thought they were a threat, they'd have been dead long before. So I'm guessing he thought they were a nuisance at worst, and that when the local leaders turned up, the Gov knew exactly what they were up to. And according to my source, he tried to give Jay a way out. Word was he had a private chat with Jay. But no chat is private in this town. There's always a guard or two in the room, and they only stay quiet until they're out of that room. They said the governor asked Jay if he was a king. Bounced things back and forth with him for a bit. Jay didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. Dumb move. But still, the governor apparently wasn't convinced he was guilty, and he told Dirt that he wanted to let Jay go. Now, Dirt might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but there's one thing he knows of how to do really well. He knows how to frighten people. How to spread rumours that make people so scared they'll do exactly what they're told. And he'd done that on that Friday morning. I don't really know how, but he'd convinced the mob that this Jay was going to get them all killed. And they were baying for his blood. Half of them were probably the same crowd who'd gone out to welcome Jay to the city not so long ago. Politics, eh? Dirt starts the crowd up, and I heard they were close to rioting, or that's the way it looked. Soldiers on edge, peace at risk, all getting really ugly. But the governor still had a card to play. He said, "You know, I can just let him go, don't you? And you can't touch him if I do." It all went quiet. So I'm in a generous mood. Can't see anyone believing that, but anyway, I think I'll let your king go. But instead, if you like, I'll let Baz out. How about that? I can see why he did it. Baz was bad. He was dangerous. He didn't have a lot of friends. People knew he'd just do something stupid again and maybe cause a lot more trouble. And for the governor, it was no great loss. He probably knew Baz would be back in jail or dead within a week. He must have figured that the people liked Jay a lot better than they liked Baz. And they had. But not that morning. Because Dirt had worked his black magic. His mates had all chimed in, making someone without any blood on his hands look like the devil himself. The mob called for the release of Baz, as if he was some sort of hero. The governor had misjudged it, and he was stuck. Baz was brought out, took the applause, shook the governor's hand, the cheeky dog, somehow managed to completely forget that Dee and I existed, that we were still on death row because of him. Then he walked off into the town. Word is the governor washed his hands straight away. Don't blame him. Whatever Baz has got, you wouldn't want it. And Jay got chucked in here with me, along with Dee, who'd been brought to the cell about an hour earlier, all of us waiting for the rattle of the lock that would take us on our last walk. Dee was looking great. They must have sorted him out perfectly. Neat little scar from the gunshot. Well fed too. I was a little bit jealous before I remembered the blood that night and how scared I'd been for him. We had a few tears and a hug and shared a few observations about Baz. It might surprise you, but neither of us were big fans. Then there wasn't much to say. I told him I was sorry that I'd got him into this. He waved it off. We've always done stuff together. Might as well do this too. He looked like the time in hospital hadn't just fixed his body. He was calm. Not happy, but calm. Jay, on the other hand, was bleeding all over the floor. The governor might have taken a shine to him, but the guards, to them he was just another one of us, and they'd been having fun. I felt sorry for him. The first beatings are the worst. It's funny how you can get used to almost anything. Well, not get used to, but at least be prepared for. He was hurting. Dee took his own shirt off, ripped it up and bandaged him as well as he could. I just watched. Didn't seem much point bandaging a man who was about to be nailed to a tree, but that's Dee for you. Best mate you could ever have. I only just realised that then. A bit late, but there you go. Then Dee and Jay started talking, all low and quiet, intense. I moved closer so I could hear but still pretend I wasn't. Don't think I fooled anyone. Dee was asking him stuff about God, forgiveness, love, death, stuff I'd never heard him talk about before, and Jay was answering. I reckon I saw him spit a tooth out once, but he was talking. Dee was telling him how one of the nurses in the hospital had told him about what Jay had been doing and what he'd been teaching and how he'd been living. One of the invader nurses. She was one of his followers, a secret follower. She'd be killed if they knew. People are crazy. Says me, who was about to be killed because I hadn't had the guts to say no to a psychopath. People, including me, are crazy. Jay too. When he heard about that nurse, he laughed. At least I think it was a laugh. Then he just put his hand on Dee's shoulder and said something softly that I couldn't catch. Then he looked at me. So did Dee. And they shared this strange look, as if they knew something I didn't. I was too scared to be proud, though. It was nice to have someone else with me that day. Then the lock rattled. All three of us got dragged out. We knew what was coming. They'd make us carry the ladders they'd used to get us up into the trees. We'd have to walk through the city so everyone could see us, as a reminder of what happens to anyone who steps out of line. Then, Dee and me got pointed to our ladders, but not Jay. Some nasty smart guard had made him a crown out of barbed wire. They stuck it on his head, and it didn't look comfortable. Bloke hardly looked like he could walk, let alone carry the ladder, but he did. He lifted it, just like us. And off we went. I'd seen these processions before from the other side. The whole city has to line the street, no exceptions, even the kids. But as we rounded the first corner, I could tell things were a bit different. There were thousands of extra people, loads of out-of-towners. Maybe the whole mob who'd followed Jay into the city. And there were a bunch of invaders too. They never turn up usually. Not a friendly environment for them. But there they were. Lots of them. Soldiers, civilians, you name it. And they weren't there for Dee and me. And they didn't look pleased. They looked sad. It was completely quiet. Not a peep from anyone. Dead set weird. Usually there's a few encouraging shouts from friends and screams from family and tears. That's the normal. Occasionally someone starts a slow clap that gradually gets faster until there's continuous applause. It's risky, but they can't arrest everyone. But that day, nothing. Maybe it was the odd mix of us and them. It was definitely because of Jay. We walked. It's a bit of a blur, but I know I saw Mum. She had tears in her eyes. She put her hand to her heart. Dad looked down, fists clenched. I know he wanted to do something, but there was nothing he could do. I saw others I knew, but they wouldn't meet my eye. Dee and me, we'd done something real bad. And we'd put them all in danger. They weren't grateful. No one saw us as heroes. But Jay, he was something else. Some people were looking ashamed. Some looked crushed. Some bewildered. They all knew what Dirt and his mates had done. And some of them had helped. They knew the whole thing was crooked and that Jay was the victim of some shoddy work. He was bleeding bad from those wounds in his head that Crown had made. He kept falling, then struggling back up. The guards kicked him or pulled him up, but he couldn't go any faster, and they were getting spooked by the silence. Jittery. They pointed their guns at the crowd and called for someone to carry Jay's ladder. No one moved. Everyone they tried to grab just disappeared back into the mob, and finally this big Indigenous bloke stepped out of the crowd. He hoisted Jay's ladder on one shoulder and bent to put his arm round Jay's waist, helping him to walk. Didn't help much. Jay was a mess. At one point, one of the nurses, maybe the one who'd spoken to Dee, who knows, stepped out and had a whispered argument with the guards. Then she wrapped a bandage around Jay's head. The guards just stood and watched. She took her time and she did it properly, like a mum might bandage one of her kids. She put the crown back on as gently as she could, but so it couldn't cut him again because of the bandage. And she kissed his forehead. Man, she had guts. Everyone saw her do it. And finally she stepped back and we kept going. Then Jay just stopped dead and stared at this woman, older woman. She sort of holds out her hands to him, but he puts his hand out to stop her. You could tell it was his mum, and he didn't want her getting into trouble. She looked totally broken and had two friends holding her up. Nothing she could do for him now, but you could see his back get a bit straighter as he walked on, just like mine did when I saw my mum. It's funny what it does to you, to know that even when everything's gone to shit, someone still cares, someone's still holding you. And we walked on. The last bit is the worst. It's uphill. The trees have to be on a rise so that people can see the bodies from anywhere. They've got a favourite hill, and that's where we were going. Used to be a picnic spot once. Not anymore. I can't explain the next bit. I don't want to. Everyone knows what pain is, and this was pain in bucket loads. There's nothing pretty about what people can do to other people they don't like or respect. I know I blacked out for a while because I remember being lashed to a tree, but I can't remember all the nails. I remember coming round and what that felt like. But there are no words. Dee was on the right-hand side of Jay. I was on Jay's left. Details. Jay looked dead already. Dirt and his mates were standing close by, yelling all sorts of abuse at him. We were just window dressing to them. They couldn't have cared less, these representatives of ours, our leaders. Anyway, they're having a go at Jay and telling him to get down from the tree if he's so important, had a special relationship with God. They laughed. I don't know what sort of person can laugh while they're looking at three fellow human beings dying, but they seemed to have no trouble. And they were doing it with Jay's mum and her friends standing right near them. They didn't care, even the religious ones. That's when I really felt the hate kick in, the rage. So I started shouting back. I must have been pretty impressive. Maybe my comments on their parentage were too close to the truth, or maybe an incoherent man screaming his life out at you as he dies is a bit unsettling, but they left. Then I started on the guards. One of the guards smacked his gun into my shin, an icing of pain on a big pain cake. I shut up because I couldn't speak for a bit. Dee looked at me and shook his head. Jay looked up and he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they're doing." "They don't know what they're doing?" I shouted at him, shock, having given me back my voice. "Do you know what you're doing, mate? Because if you do, get us down from here, eh? If you're best mates with God, why not? Can't be that hard, can it? Can it? Do something, my mate's dying. I'm dying, you're dying. If you've got something you're holding back, this would be a good moment to get it out of your toolkit." Jay dropped his head again. Dee lifted his. "Gee, show some bloody respect. You know why we're here. We helped kill that bloke. Whether or not we meant to, we were part of it. We're here because we deserve to be, but not him. You know that." That was typical Dee, dying and still hassling me to mind my manners. Then he turned his face towards Jay, and I could see Dee was only just hanging in. Maybe they hadn't done such a good job in the military hospital, hadn't really fixed him because he was looking grey. "Jay," he said, "remember me when you're king." I yelled, "King? How's he gonna be king?" But Jay turned to him and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "Today, you will be with me in paradise." And he just looked into his eyes and smiled, like he totally believed it, like the nails were already gone. Dee's eyes turned to me and he said, "Mate, we've done everything together. Let's not stop now. I'll be looking for you." His head dropped. He was tapping out. I could just see him breathing still, but he was gone. My best friend. All down to me. I've never felt that hollow inside. I was weeping, and it wasn't the pain of the nails. My gutless pride had killed him. I looked at Jay. He lifted his head again, turned to me, and I looked into his eyes. Seriously, I don't know if this is just a thing when you're dying, but I felt like I was looking into the night sky. His eyes were whirling with stars and lights and flashes of colour, and I just seemed to fall in. I wanted to say, "Can I go too, to where Dee's going?" but I couldn't speak. I didn't need to. I knew the answer. Jay was looking at me as if he'd always known. And in amongst the worlds opening in his eyes, I swear, I could also see Dee's eyes looking at me. His eyes in Jay's eyes, like they were already somewhere else at the same time as hanging there with me, dying on gum trees over my hometown. Then the strangest thing. The sky went dark like a storm had swept in from nowhere, and the sun had gone on smoko, dark like night. Guards were flicking torches on, but they all failed after a second or so. Dark, dark and quiet, like the grave. And Jay calls out, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." He looks at me one last time, with this strange mix of grimace and grin on his face. And the fireworks went off in his eyes, and I saw something I'll never forget. I saw welcome. I saw home. I saw paradise. I heard a cockatoo scream in the darkness. I felt the whip of wind from its wings. Then Jesus died. He stopped breathing, and my brain went to black. You'll be asking how I can tell you this story. It's a fair question. Here's the only answer I'll give you. All at once, in less than a second. That's how long it takes the world to turn itself upside down, and for everything you've ever dreamt of to appear.